What's up, everyone, and welcome to. Is this the first one we've done at the beginning? I feel like we might have already. No, it's just been the craziest week ever. This is the first LunarCrush
I'm
live.
gonna break it to you that it's only been a week and a half in 2022 so far.
Is
So
it 2023 yet? Because it sure feels like we've already had a year. Welcome everyone to the first episode of LunarCrush Live 2022. We have the IoTeX team here. We're super stoked. I mean, we had these guys on. I was looking at it. It was like over a year ago. And holy crap, what this team has done in the last year and a half has been absolutely amazing. It's been super fun to watch from afar, but also close. We keep a close eye on these guys. We got Raullen, Jing, we've got Larry. We're going to be discussing all sorts of stuff on the platform, that what they've been doing, all their developments. We're also going to do a little giveaway. We've got some pebble trackers. We're going to give away LunarCrush level 3. So it's 100 Lunar for 3 people. What else we got? By the way, disclaimer, we never take payment for our live streams. We bring on cool, fun, exciting people who dedicated their careers to the space because that's what we do. And that's what we're all about here is community at LunarCrush. You got anything else before we start, John? Or should I bring these folks up?
How can they win one of those 3 pebble trackers that we're going to give away? They have to ask a question on the tweet that is streaming this live stream here right now. So if you ask a question and it gets answered later in the stream, you could potentially win. I'll also say, how do you win those level 3 access on LunarCrush? You have to retweet this live stream and say why you use LunarCrush and why it's so amazing and helps you out. And so we'll potentially give away level 3 access to 3 lucky individuals there.
Sweet. And we'll make sure Kabi, who's in the background, is definitely posting that on that tweet, right, Kabi? Love you, brother. All right, you guys, without further ado, let's bring this team up and let's have some fun. Boom, boom, boom. What's up, everyone? Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. How are you guys all doing today?
Amazing. Yeah, it's really great to be back with the LunarCrush team. Yeah.
Cool. So we always like to start, like, who are you? Where are you in the world today? And what's it like there? And Raullen, maybe we'll start with you up in the upper corner there.
Yeah, sure. My name is Raullen. So I'm the co-founder of IoTeX. I'm in California, Silicon Valley.
Nice, man. Is it sunny up there today? I know you guys have been getting a lot of rain.
It's sunny. It's sunny today.
Cool.
Yeah.
If you have a pebble, you can actually prove to the blockchain it's sunny today.
I can't wait to get to that.
Wow,
that's true.
Larry.
Yeah, Larry Pang, head of ecosystem here at IoTeX. I'm also in San Francisco, and you can see a little bit out the shade there that it is sunny. It's a beautiful day, and before we start, congrats, you guys are top 2,000 website in the world. No better guys to spend Tuesday morning with. So really excited to chat with you guys.
Oh, appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're happy. Yeah. We're lucky and humble and happy to be there. And we're gonna keep pushing on that pedal too as well. Jing, who are you?
Hi.
Where are you in the world?
Yeah, I'm also in California.
Nice.
How are you? Yeah.
Nice. We got a bunch of Californians here. We're up and down. We're up and down the coast.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Hi, my name is Jing. Yeah, just make an intro. Yeah, a founding team of IoTeX. So happy to be here. It looks like we are the first guest in your show this year. We are so honored to be here again since last year, and so much to share with your community. Thank you for having us.
Of course. No, thank you for being here. John, it looks like you want to start a little out of order today. Why don't you kick us off?
Yeah. We're giving away these pebbles. Let's maybe start out of our typical order here. Tell us about the pebble and what it does and why the community should be excited about it.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe I can kick this off. Last in November, we made a really big announcement about our future vision for what we call MachineFi. Right, MachineFi is exactly what it sounds like: the financialization of machines. Owning your data that's generated by these billions of machines around the world. Not only owning it, but even being able to opt in and using it to prove things to the blockchain that you've done. Whether it's visiting a certain place, like Raullen mentioned, it has a proving that you're in a sunny place, proving your health. All of these things are using the data from our machines in order to, create a brand new design space for blockchain, which we're just super pumped about, right? And Pebble Tracker is kind of the first example of MachineFi. This is a device that we manufactured with Nordic Semiconductor, a really popular publicly traded semiconductor company out of the Nordic area. And it's the first device that is streaming real world data directly from the device to the blockchain. It does GPS, temperature, humidity, air quality, motion, vibration, and light. Really gives you a full 360 view of an asset's environment, whether it's yourself, a package, a dog, a car, and all of that data is signed with a secure element, just like the one in your phone that does your biometrics, just like the one in your Ledger device that protects your private keys for verifiability and ownership. And yeah, data is your property. Everything that comes out of the Pebble tracker is yours, and you can use it to earn different rewards. It's kind of like a mining device that's portable in the flesh, right? So it's paired with a lot of software, which we would love to talk about. Raullen's going to share a little bit about his future vision for MachineFi and all these tools such as TrueStream, which really make all of this stuff happen. But it's really the new generation for IoTeX. We've built this beautiful blockchain over the past 4 years. We've always had this view that, real world data and real world devices are going to change everything for blockchain. And it's just amazing to see that come to life. So, yeah.
Amazing. It's funny. It's like I had a coworker that I used to work with, and she would get a receipt every time she went somewhere. And she was always like, I just want to prove that I was there.
Yeah.
And then I was always like, why? Like, why? And then she just had this like laundry list of like reasons why, she was like, well, if anyone ever says I was over there and I wasn't, it was like personal stuff from like friends saying you were in somewhere. It was just, there was a million reasons why she wanted to be able to prove like where she was.
Yeah.
And when you hear that for the first time of like, well, why would I want to prove that thing? Or why would I want this to be there forever? It's like, well, sometimes it's there to protect you.
For sure. What's interesting is like everyone in the blockchain space is already familiar with proofs in a lot of different ways. Proof of work, proof of stake. A lot of people think about these as consensus mechanisms. These are literally proofs that you're giving to the blockchain in order to receive some type of reward, permission, or benefit, right? You solve this very computationally intensive puzzle for Bitcoin and you're eligible to be a validator. You prove to the blockchain that you stake 32 ETH and you have the right to mint the next block, right? All these things we're doing in the digital world, even play to earn, right? You're clicking buttons, you're proving that you're active on an app so that you can earn rewards within the app, right? But what if we could expand that proof, not only from things you do in the digital world, but to things that you do in the digital world, right? Prove to the blockchain you've improved your health. Prove to the blockchain you're a safe driver. Prove to the blockchain you visited a specific place at a specific time. And you can earn an NFT, you can get token rewards, you can lower your insurance rates. This is the design space of MachineFi. And, it starts with this device, Pebble Tracker, but we have a huge, amazing roadmap of other devices. We're really trying to be the universal hub for machine data. It's going to be an incredible year, guys. It's really an incredible year.
And you also have Ucam as well, right? And how's that going?
Yeah, Jing, you want to give a short update on Ucam?
Of course. Yeah, so we had an amazing year, in 2021. We finally, surpassed actually 10,000, Ucams into over 30 countries all around the world, which means that we got a lot of the feedback, positive feedbacks, from our community members, and they urge us to, hey, we want to kind of, outdoor and other kind of dash camera for the cars. Actually, just like our partners are working on that. So I think this year you will have more innovative products, in the form of the camera, but actually, kind of for different areas and for different, kind of occasions. And also, actually there are teams, right? There are developer teams already, coming to us, and they want to kind of working on different type of the dApps, so that we are thinking, just like how, it's a camera. If this camera is outside, which means, just like those data they generated, captured, in the outside, actually could be useful for the public utility, right? How we can kind of create those kind of, mechanism to incentivize certain things for people to contribute, their camera data is also something we are working on. So basically, this is kind of all under the same MachineFi concept, and the infrastructure will be universal, but actually the design space opened a lot of the dApps and Web3 builders to work on.
And how are you guys incentivizing the dApp builders for like specifically, like, are you choosing a product line and then like, there's certain kind of grants or opportunities for them to go for based on like product line, or people coming to you guys with ideas? We'll talk to like, the Avalanches of the world. And like, we talked to a lot of the other like kind of layer one, but like not focused obviously like hardware oriented, but it's gotten, I wouldn't say it's gotten extremely competitive, but I will say like everyone is so entrepreneurial in this space that it's like, and there has to be a little bit more of a filter than there was like a couple years ago, where it's like, oh, you want to build on this? Yeah, please help. Like, we need people to build. Like, holy crap. Now it's a little bit of like, hey, I'm not sure not quite sure that idea is ready for the market like today, or like we're kind of looking for product market fit like a little bit earlier, I feel like, in this space. Are you guys like, is it, how are you kind of choosing to kind of deploy some of this stuff to kind of drive a little bit of the ecosystem? Because like everything else, it's like, hey, you want to kind of get something to a certain spot, and then you kind of push it out to the world, like more decentralized. So where are you guys at with some of that stuff?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good question, right? It all comes down to like why decentralization Web3 matters. So, to me or to us, I think the most important thing for Web3 and this decentralization is like the innovation, right? The power of innovation, because composability, because there are so many like building blocks, everybody can just put it together, can try out different products. Eventually, some of the products will have market fit, as we can see, right, on the market. Some of them will not. I think for IoTeX, we have a pretty unique value prop here. So we basically bring together like a Web3 token developers, IoT companies, IoT developers, as well as users all together using IoTeX, right? So if you look at other layer one blockchain, Avalanche, definitely like a token Web3 developers and users. So we have like a one more dimension here. So it's quite interesting, like, because we have done like this, like a giant infra in the middle in a decentralized way. So like those IoT companies, IoT developers, so they can bring their devices actually connected to IoTeX without concerning too much about how do I design a token, how do I do a community, right? So they just like plugging a very thin layer of SDK into their device connected to IoTeX, call it down, and just waiting there for stealing more devices. That's exactly what they want. On the other hand, like for the Web3 token developers, so they will have something like a very new. So maybe you can design a token to incentivize people, drive to earn, or maybe incentivize people like a run to earn, So those like a very new themes, like the Web3 developers can have a tryout over there and design some like a token economics. For example, if you're driving from San Francisco to San Jose within 30 minutes, you're getting like $100 or like 100 tokens, right? So those things can be done very easily. And also for the user, because user, of course, they drive every day maybe, so they earn every day. So that's why I think there is a big chance for IoTeX.
Maybe I adding 2 cents here. Actually, just like, IoTeX and our MachineFi, we try to kind of, this is a new space, we connect the real world and through the devices. And here we opened the door to a kind of new group of developer builders or, users, which never really kind of tried crypto before, but they are kind of just like start to get into the space, through our portal. So here, just like we are talking about, for example, we are working with a lot of the machine companies, and they come to us actually. Say those machine companies, they already have kind of millions of the users. And then they see that the MachineFi opportunities and what they do, just like what they really wanted, how they convert them to be Web3. This is a hard problem for them, right? And for us, actually, we kind of speed up the entire process. Actually, some of them, they already kind of get into the MachineFi, but their roadmap is kind of 24 months. So which means that at least, they need to do things, from kind of end to end, from scratch. A lot of the, protocols and the building blocks, which will help them integrate their devices into the blockchain is not there yet. Or just like there's no other kind of, project can provide this. No other public chain really have such kind of building block. So we are here, leveraging our technology, which are more layer 2, true stream and other components. We can help them at least kind of just like save the time 12 months to 18 months to help them kind of just like, speed up their process, get into the blockchain maybe within the next, 6 months to 12 months. So that's the value we kind of bring to them. And also that's the value, if they really can get into the space, actually just their existing kind of community, right? Integrate the devices users, integrate with the chain. And then they will be start to kind of just like join this Web3 amazing Web3 dApp ecosystem for the first time.
Yeah. For me, there's two ways to think about this intersection of blockchain and IoT, right? One is, how is blockchain going to impact the IoT today? The other way is, how is IoT going to impact what's going on in blockchain already, right? I think both of those are huge opportunities. The first one is a little bit more clear how blockchain is going to help IoT, right? Security, privacy, interoperability. These are all native benefits of blockchain that are going to make our IoT devices more secure and more trustworthy. And for IoT impacting blockchain, this brand new source of data, right? Blockchains are stupid until you make them smart. You teach them things about what the price of a Bitcoin is at any moment. That's fun. That's fueling all this DeFi, lending, borrowing, collateralization, right? But if we can know more facts about the real world, that's going to funnel into dApps and create all these new incentive structures where you can literally do things in the real world, prove that you've done it in order to get some type of reward, right? All these win-win situations. These devices that we've built over the past 2 years, they're fully functional, but they're also proof of concepts, right? We show these to different types of device manufacturers who honestly have a really hard time selling hardware these days. You go to Amazon and you search for a security camera or asset tracker, you're gonna get thousands of results, all 4 stars, all prime. How do they even compete in this kind of thing, right? And I think Helium made a great example of this. You can design tokenomics where you encourage people to use your devices and they get ownership of the product that they're building, right? Even see it with Cello and Kickstarter announcing that partnership. Yeah. So if we're able to use Web3 tokenomics, not only just make these devices more secure and more user-centric, but also adding tokenomics that really allow these hardware device communities to be bootstrapped. I think it's a brand new era for how people are going to approach hardware. Blank to earn is a huge industry, right? Everyone's familiar with play to earn. People are doing things in the digital world to earn digital assets and digital reputation. But once you expand that into the real world, people are going to be doing scavenger hunts type of things, doing things in the real world in order to earn digital assets and digital reputation. So we think it's a match made in heaven. We've always believed that devices are going to be the biggest users of blockchains in the future, and would love to talk about how MachineFi also touches DeFi, GameFi, and especially DAOs also. So just a huge design space that we're kind of unlocking.
You talk about something really interesting, this transition from Web 2 to Web 3. And I keep thinking, I mean, personally, I was a pretty early adopter with smart home, different technologies, experimenting. I found out initially very early on that nothing worked together very well. And then, we're at the state today where you could walk into a Best Buy or go to Amazon and you see it's one closed ecosystem after another. It's just it's great as long as you're going to get all, Nest products. It's fine as long as you're going to go here and get this other brand. And it's interesting. How do you see, how are the hardware manufacturers and these Web 2 companies, how are they looking at this? Are they looking at this from the opportunity of incentivization, differentiation? Where are they?
Jing, you talked to so many machine companies lately. Maybe you could take this one.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very good question. I think just if we have, at least kind of, hundreds of people, hundreds of the machine company we have talked, in the past, 4 years, right? I can tell you the change. Actually we start to talk to them, back in kind of 2018. At that time, there's no clue. They feel just there's no need for either just and they also have Hyperledger if they want to do the blockchain, and then they can use certain kind of consortium based blockchain, because they didn't see this tokenomics really matters, and they didn't see just what's the real benefits when we are talking about for example the privacy, all those things. Actually just they say, hey, actually we can use the protocol, we can use the other things to ensure the privacy, so that we kind of dig deep and deep what's the real kind of the benefits, what really kind of drive people, what's the problem here, right? And now, just when we kind of introduced the MachineFi, we got tremendous interest immediately. Basically, just every day we have, a lot of machine companies, they come to us because actually they solve their current problem, several problems, right? So this problem is actually Web3 bring the benefits there. So number one, I think Lauren already talked about it, which is composability. So for machine companies, the hard problem is most of them, I mean, besides those big four, most of the companies, they are actually small, medium size. Maybe they have less than 1 million users. And they cannot really kind of have this, network effect, right? And now just like what they have to do is just like the entire, supply chain is too long. And the software, hardware, manufacturing, all the things they have to do by themselves. And then the bootstrap or the cost to bootstrap the network is really hard, right? And I think the composability of the Web3 make it so easy. I mean, just each of the player, actually, they can just like focus on one single thing, which they are doing really good. And then just like the building blocks can be developed by all types of different, builders. And then just like, it's kind of just like the open source place make it so easy for them to do the innovations. And also a lot of software, they actually can allocate to the Web3 developers. We have so many Web3 developers, they are eager to make the innovations. And in IoTeX, for example, we are already working, we kind of just through our Halo grant, through our ecosystem fund to help kind of bootstrap the entire innovation space. And this space is kind of just like create the utility or the demand side for those machine company to, when they bootstrap the machine network. So that's one thing. Yeah. And this another thing is actually just like, really important to hear is, MachineFi makes those community, driven machine network possible. So which means just like, for example, Tesla is a manufacturer, very big manufacturer. They build, the autonomous cars, right? But just like, then you imagine in future, what type of kind of autonomous car operating, system will look like? It will be 100% owned by Tesla, or just like the community member, they purchase one, and then they can easily kind of create maybe a kind of a small scale of local community operation system. They just kind of, rent their cars into this surface system, and then they can start to generate revenue. Current, infrastructure cannot do that, and all the existing machine companies, they have said that. And then just like, but actually they are lacking, such type of the infrastructure. And so that they immediately kind of get, when we talk about the MachineFi, they understand this will be the future. And then even just like those people, either they want to kind of just like start to kind of just like try the new things, or they will say, hey, at least those machine company, they are looking for right now. They are not looking for ask for kind of why, but they ask kind of how we can join your network, right? How we can build a machine network for our devices. So I think that's a very big kind of change.
It's a big hump to overcome from the why should I do this to how do I do this, and I don't think people realize that. But there's something that both of you guys said that kind of comes together, which is, Jing, you're kind of talking about like, think about all these like Web 2 developers that are working at Google or Apple or Microsoft. It's like they're now looking and saying like, how do I join Web 3 anything, right? And it's really not that like big of a switch now for them to come over and say, hey, I'm developing in this language, and now I'm coming over here. I'm joining this company that does have Web 2 components to it, but it's also Web 3. It's like, that's easy. It's not, there was no place right now. It's like, hey, if you're passionate about hardware, if you're passionate about IoT, you're like, I don't want to go build this other stuff. This is what I want to build. And there was no spot for me. So it's like, there's probably this talent pool now that's sitting there saying like, well, where do I fit in this new world? And then you also think about the idea behind, we used to talk, it's like, hey, if you're a software company raising a Series A, maybe this was back like 7 years ago, it'd be like, it's like a $4 or $5 million round, which now is probably like, $40 to $50 million. But it's like, a Series A for a hardware company is much more expensive. So always much more difficult to also raise capital in that environment. Exactly. So it's like, if the barrier to entry that you guys are bringing down on both of those, and then combining that with the composability, which is like, I think, to like define composability for people, it's like just the network effect of everything working with everything instantaneously and easy and open source. I don't know if anyone has a better definition, but it's like,
you nailed it.
That's the rub of all of this. And it's like, you guys are kind of like those three things together, I feel like is pretty going to be pretty impactful you know, the fact that you guys already have like the growth and like kind of scale that you have, it's like, and you got the companies now coming to you. It's like, this is something's about to get super interesting here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Actually, just like, several years ago, the kind of the game developer or the game founders, it's very hard to really raise serious kind of, fundings from the VCs. Because, the model is always kind of revenue driven and there's no kind of much potential. And you will see just like, the GameFi opened the entire space for game developers as well. So actually the same trend will be extended to different vertical. In our case, it will be extended to, the machine and IoT, developers, right? So basically those, a group of hardware, founders and developers, they have been left behind, from these new kind of Web3 revolutions, and now kind of just like open the door for them. And you can imagine, it kind of opened the entire innovation space for those users, as those, kind of developer. And those are really, really kind of talented people and builders.
Yeah, it's also really interesting to say that you're going to develop for some closed ecosystem. And it's another thing to say, I'm going to build on something that already has, oracles in place, and there's machine learning in place, and there's an incentivization model in place. None of these things exist on a lot of these closed systems, and there's no incentive for the developers to really build on them.
Yeah.
So it's
all this hardware is wrapped around a suite of software. It's not just the blockchain, but we have a lot of IoT oriented middleware, the Oracle you're talking about. Very recently we just announced that we started an IEEE standard with Lenovo, Bosch, Lockheed Martin, Ericsson, a few other big enterprises to really define what Web3 device identity looks like, right? So even these big enterprises we're talking about, not just the small to medium players, but everybody's got their eyes on Web3. I think, Raullen, you can explain a little bit about the software that pairs with the hardware,
Sure. I think it's interesting, like Jing was talking about games, right? So if you think, in the past, games are kind of individual, small, like a virtual world. Now, GameFi is definitely like having blockchain as the underlying infrastructure connecting all the virtual universe, right? So basically, you can earn maybe some equipment from game A and trying to use in the game B, or maybe you can do some NFT like between those universe. It's the same kind of paradigm. You can also thinking about MachineFi. So those IoT companies, those device companies, so they are like the virtual boxes, sitting on top of IoTeX. But IoTeX basically provides this like common infrastructure, so connecting them all together with the user, with the community, right? So that's basically composed of our like layer 1 blockchain, which we have been built from 2016 to 2019, launching in production for 2 more years, processing 35 million transactions already, 100 more validators supported by all the top exchanges in the world. So yeah, it's quite a successful layer 1, but we do have like a very good roadmap for layer 1 to just become better this year. And on top, so we have kind of different layer 2 components. We have Bridge, connecting IoTeX to Avalanche, to Near, to BSC, to Polygon, to Ethereum. And we do have our wallet explorer, like a 2-chain, basically allow users can use, or also developers to do NFT, DAO, game, and everything on top of IoTeX layer 1. But most interestingly is like this layer 2 we call TrueStream, which is something like a very unique, like we built, right? So it's a layer 2 that can talk with machines and understands what the machine does or says. For example, like a pebble or maybe a car tells TrueStream, oh, maybe the weather here is really good, so here is my proof. Then TrueStream will be the guy who's kind of translating, also validating this proof, and then call the smart contract on behalf of the device, saying, oh, this dude is saying something very true, give him 1 token, right? So that is basically like the kind of very simple analogy, like how this infrastructure works. So this infrastructure can also support, not any like a pebble, not any like, car, can also do like a Raspberry Pi, 3D printer, solar panel, you name it, all the like a device in the real world. If you want to, plug in some sort of incentivized mechanisms, I think here is the infra to go.
Yeah. One of the big like aha moments that, we do when we explain this to Web 2 companies is people still don't really understand Web 3. Like we see all these things on Twitter, like Web 1 is read, Web 2 is write, Web 3 is own. It doesn't tell you anything about like what the actual opportunity is, right? But if you explain to them at each layer of this Web 3 architecture, there's always someone that's incentivizing someone else to do something that they wouldn't necessarily do on their own accord in order to receive some reward, benefit, or permission, right? At layer one, that looks like the validator pool, right? People aren't running servers on the weekend for fun. They're doing it to support the network, yes, but they're doing it for profit also, right? It's a revenue stream for them. And that's already like a tried and true type of incentive structure, right? But at the dApp level, it's very much the same, right? These DeFi protocols are incentivizing you to deposit your funds so you can earn value, right? And then they'll take that deposited value and they'll figure out how to earn more yield on it, right? So that's a win-win situation. When we talk about MachineFi and IoT, this is also a two-sided marketplace, right? If an insurance company, whether it's a car insurance or a health insurance company, wants to incentivize you to be healthier, to achieve this win-win situation, today we have companies like Allstate that says if you don't get in an accident in every year, we're going to lower your insurance rate. But what MachineFi is really doing is breaking that down into more granular tasks, right? Never go over the speed limit. Always have your seatbelt on. All this data collected by the electronic control units in your car can be used as proof that you're a safe driver, right? Not just from a binary accident, no accident, right? Maybe you're such a crazy driver, you'd never get in an accident, but that doesn't mean you're a good driver, right? So these two-sided marketplaces, devices, trusted devices are really the brokers of this. The proof generators, right? Allowing these new incentive structures to work. The example that I think about a lot is Waze, right? Waze is this it has a decentralized vibe to it, but imagine if Waze, every time you reported a pothole, you can get a little bit of payment for that, right? Then it becomes a community effort where they're sharing in the progress or the product, right? Even like 23andMe, they sold the customer database for like $250 million back a few years ago, probably worth multiple billions now. But if they had just given a little bit of payment to the people that submitted their DNA so that they can make that $250 million,
20x
maybe it wouldn't. Exactly. It would make this whole thing a lot more tenable, right? People just want to be part of what they create. And that's the opportunity of what Web3 is really providing. And I think expanding this into the real world just opens up so many new design spaces. And, we're working with a lot of people with domain expertise to figure out how to recreate these incentive models to be more fair, user-centric, but also win-wins, right?
Yeah. Larry, it's not only that it's more lucrative, like you're saying, like these people are running validators or running things. It's also like the right thing to do, right? Mm-hmm. To pass on this profit to the people and let those people have control over their data and their identity and everything else. It's like, once you understand that, it's like, well, why would you ever build something in this other domain? And it's like, when you start thinking about almost every single SaaS model that currently exists today, or every single kind of paid ads model, you can disrupt that instantaneously if it's a little bit easier to build than today, but it's still going to get disrupted because people are going to go after it so hard. It's like, I think about something as simple as like surfing. It's like, I look at a camera and I try and figure out whether or not like the waves are good. Right. And then like I go there and it's like I pay $9.99 like a month or whatnot to understand that. In reality, it'd be a lot better if there was just like another human that was there that like was like, hey, it's like, do I go? Yes or no? I just want to know yes or no. And my parameters for going are 2 to 4 feet and like this. Right. And so it's like, yes. And if I go and I validate that like the waves were good, that person gets paid. If the waves suck, that person doesn't get paid. And it's okay if my like vision of what is good and someone else's vision is what is good is different. Because if enough people go and still say they had fun, then you get paid. And it's like, it's just like one small, like, but also like pretty large, like community of people that's out there, like internationally.
100%. Really bringing power to the people, I think it's,
and it will be extremely beneficial to set up, a small size, or ad hoc type of the community network, like you just mentioned, without, such a kind of system, say, hey, actually it's easily can bootstrap a network, and then there is a kind of certain token models to incentivize people. Actually, just it's impossible because there's no company really have incentive to create such type of applications or network, right? But actually, it's extremely beneficial to the local community. For example, we actually just like you just mentioned, actually this is a sector we are extremely excited about, which is the sports, the physical sports. there are so many different, physical sports, like ski, for example, right? Like, all it's kind of the sports, so many passionate kind of, professional or, amateur, athletes, and they rely on the, kind of the, the real world, real time, data to help them, tracking their kind of the sports data, or just like share their data, kind of give the support, for example, those type of the data to their kind of peer, users is extremely kind of, useful. And also those kind of incentivize them to kind of achieve their own goal, for example. Those are also very, very kind of, beneficial.
Jing, you bring up skiing, I think that's, yeah, right. I know, right? There, that's perfect. A perfect example. You bring up skiing though, and I've been to so many different resorts where they have their own kind of proprietary program. Sometimes they put it in your season pass, a little chip or something to track your runs.
The
Sometimes
Epic
it's an app on your phone, the Epic Pass. But it's interesting. At some point, those hit a kind of a functionality limit. Like there's only so much that those things do. There's no ecosystem building around it because let's say that those apps paid you for skiing, or snowboarding. In my case, I have to throw it out there. Like let's say they paid you. Like what are you going to do with that? What exactly is the use of that token? And is it only them that's building on it? So I think it's really interesting because if you have a third party, like a whole ecosystem that's building, imagine if you could turn everything into a game. Your whole day is just gamified constantly. It's a video game. There's so many fun things that you could do with that. So pretty exciting.
So many people are too obsessed with a virtual game. We want the people to do more physical game. Actually, all the sports are game. It's easily just like you can just like all the concept GameFi can be applied to it's a real game. It's a real sport.
I think skiing is an amazing example. That Peloton in the background for Jing, like people go to these classes to be on top of the leaderboard, but that's fleeting. You're on top of the leaderboard and what, right? That saved.
And then someone doesn't even give you a high five, and then you're upset.
Exactly. But like even like the Nike running app, right? I used to set up groups with my friends and be like, "Yo, I'm gonna run longer than you this week." But imagine if you can have like a bottoms up prize pools. You can you gamify it within your peer set or with this anonymous group. They're really important to verify the data that's being put into it. Otherwise, it becomes a honeypot. And that's why, Pebble Tracker with a secure element, it really provides that accurate reading of what happened in the real world, right? Just like Chainlink, right? I think the DeFi summer 2020 revolution was catalyzed by the fact that for the first time, everyone agreed on what the price of a USDT or what the price of a Bitcoin was, right? Without that, how can you lend? How can you borrow? How do you collect? How do you collateralize, right? If we have a single version of the truth about things that happened in the real world, then it starts to become, this amazing design space again, right? I think IoTex's role in this is we're the infrastructure that you can register your devices, give them an identity, bring that data to the chain in a verifiable way, and then it really becomes like a data science question, right? Like you can attach really aggressive tokenomics to this to say, use my device and I'm going to pay you some tokens that represent voting rights or, points for a loyalty store or whatever, right? But in the long run, finding that equilibrium point where the tokenomics are balanced, where, whoever's incentivizing the other person to do whatever they're being incentivized to do, like that win-win situation, we find equilibrium in that, then these are permissionless networks that anyone can join, opt in to share their data, prove things to the chain. I think it's just so interesting, the tokenomics aspect of it.
Maybe you guys can touch on this a little bit. I mean, so it's like, if there's surfing or there's sports and you're providing good data, you get, a reward or like a point for that, or you get a token or whatnot, right? If you don't provide good data, you just don't get anything, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay, I feel like, in some arenas. But if we're talking like self-driving vehicles, like if you provide bad data, there could be like a safety and a liability aspect to that bad data. It's like, what are your thoughts around, potentially saying, hey, like not only can you not earn, but we're going to remove some tokens from you, or you're going to be limited for the next week, or you can't even contribute anymore to this arena. And then how do you protect against that when it's someone might say like, hey, okay, I'm just going to remove this wallet and this address and boom, I'm on a new address, right? It's like, what are your, like, it's a very ethereal and larger question. I don't know if we all have the answer to it. It's something that we think about a lot now too, but Like where are you guys kind of thoughts around like that kind of incentive model of not only just rewarding or zero, but -1, you know?
Yeah. It reminds me of slashing in proof of stake, right? You propose a malicious block and you're going to get slashed, right? You're going to lose your deposit. So there's incentives to not provide crap data or false data. Same thing with Chainlink, right? Chainlink has these validator sets that need to validate every other node to make sure that, you know, they came up with the same result. When you said that, Joe, I was thinking about DAOs, right? DAOs are another buzzword, hot topic. You know, everything's a DAO these days. But in reality, today, DAOs are not really decentralized and they're not really autonomous, right? The core decision makers, and it's not really autonomous because there's a lot of human subjectivity within these DAOs, right? I think the DAO of the future is machine-based because it's like smart contracts. Machines do what they're told, and you can verify that there's no backdoors or anything behind the scenes happening, right? So if you have a decentralized group of drones or autonomous taxis or similar devices that are all following the same protocol in an autonomous fashion and sharing the rewards or the benefits, that's going to be the purest form of a DAO, right? But all the business logic, all the rules of operations, all the, you know, incentives to provide good data and the disincentives to provide bad data, or, you know, in the future, services, not just like, you know, devices are data generators, yes, but in the future, this is going to be a two-way interaction between devices and the blockchain, right? Devices can receive instructions from a smart contract to go deliver something like a physical airdrop, or, you know, pick up this customer in an autonomous taxi, or, you know, deliver some type of service as we trend towards this Boston Dynamics dog kind of future. There's gonna be so many robots that are doing things that humans do, right? And, you know, this was kind of the theme of our MachineFi narrative, is that there's going to be 100 billion devices out there by 2030, generating 80 zettabytes of data. That's 80 trillion gigabytes. And McKinsey estimates this entire machine economy by 2030 is going to be worth $12.6 trillion with a T, right? And the question we've got to ask is, who's going to own this, right? Who's going to, if machines are the future workforce, we all agree on this, right? Who's going to own this workforce? Who's going to own the value? And Web3 provides that opportunity to push that value, ownership, control to users. So a lot of stuff to figure out, but I think this is the future, you know?
I have a pretty big question here. I mean, on the same note there, who owns the AI? Because if you have all these machines and there's more machines than humans, those machines need to communicate with each other confidently, and there's payments involved, and humans aren't involved, and automation's involved. And so where does AI fit into this mix, and where does that come into play with IoTeX?
This is a great question, you know. So you know, first you have to understand why can any Google do AI right now, or maybe Amazon do AI? Because they own like a huge amount of data, right? Basically, you can only do the AI if any you own the data. So that comes down to the ownership of data, definitely. So then the next question is, who's going to own the data in the MachineFi world, or maybe in the Web3 world? That's actually users, right? Then I think there will be some economics around how the users can rent out their data to like a third-party developers and allow them to do the UI. Not only just Google, not only just Facebook, but, you know, like those developers out there. The AI becomes something also like owned by the people, not just owned by the big company.
Yeah.
Maybe
really
I can adding some of my personal kind of investment experience here. Back in 2015, actually at that time, you know, the AI is really booming. And then you see there are so many AI stuff just coming out. All genius kind of, builders and innovators, right? So they come up with a kind of the much better kind of, AI algorithms than, their existing company. Many of them, they actually from Google, from Amazon, right? From the big company. And they feel they can actually create a better AI so that they feel this is a good startup. And then just like you will see, after 3 to 4 years, most of those AI companies, either they disappeared or they got acquired by big company. They never can survive by themselves. The major reason is just because, what Raullen said, because all those AI companies, they don't have the access to the data, which means that the AI is not that valuable if they don't really have the data to analyze. Yep. And then just end up, they have to, and they also have no kind of business model, no incentive model. to really kind of just like, keep it kind of innovate on the AI model, right? And then just like they have to be kind of acquired at a very, very kind of low, valuations, by those big companies, right? But now it's different. When the Web3 is coming out, all those AI companies or those, AI building teams, they can focus on their AI models. And then because they are kind of one building block for the entire Web3 models. And they can be owned by the community as well. And the community can contribute data to them. Or they will have the access to certain data pools which they want. And then it becomes extremely collaborative. So each of the builders, they can focus on one thing which they are really good at and get a kind of proper incentive model to help them make progress.
Yeah, this concept is even stretching to people that historically didn't think about IoT and blockchain as something, right? Even Don Tapscott, the founder of the Blockchain Research Institute, just put out a blog post this week calling blockchain, IoT, and AI the holy triumvirate, right? Where IoT is the data generator, blockchain is the data securer, and AI is the data analyzer, right? Pretty much. It's not verbatim what Don said, but that's the gist of the article, right? And I wholeheartedly believe that. And it goes back to the composability piece, right? If you're not an AI company, you're not going to build AI models, but you do want to leverage them to extract the value from the data and push it back to your users, right? Another really interesting piece of AI that I think marries really well with blockchain and IoT is federated machine learning, right? Federated meaning you bring the code to the data, not the data to the code, right? So when in this kind of Web3 ownership model, there's always a question like the big brother question, right? If I want to train this AI model and contribute to it, I have to give up my data. Then we're back to the Web 2 days, right? Where, that's a hard trade-off. I give up my health data in order to train something that I don't see the benefits from. No thanks, right? But if I can own my data, I can opt into sharing it in a privacy preserving fashion. And I can not only train this model that makes society better, but I can also receive rewards for doing it. Sign me up, right? So I think these are, within all of these layers we're talking about, blockchain, IoT, AI, there's composable modules within each of these layers, but the full tech stack also is going to be composable too, right? And I mean, I think that's going to be the future that we see in the coming years.
Health data is such a big one. I mean, everyone's been trying to solve the personal health record for so long, and it's just not solved whatsoever. I mean, it's like you're going around to some other countries, especially like with COVID, it was a perfect example of you go to other countries and it's especially if you've traveled after COVID and it's oh, you have a place where you can prove that you've gotten this, right? In the US, we're still walking around with pictures of a card on your phone and someone kind of checks it, but they're really not checking it. They're it's go in there. Yeah, we need the business. It's you've got no idea who's got any at all. And even internationally, they're just that's all you got. It's oh, you can't even laminate it because then you can't get it on the next one. And then when you get a marker over it, it's just insane what's happening from a health perspective. I think we should go to a couple questions here. I found one I really like that maybe I can kickstart with, and then John, maybe you can search through that crazy thread and get a couple.
So many. I got one.
Here.
By the way, let's pick the LunarCrush level 3 winners. We'll pick those after on social because there's far too many. Let's not talk about those here.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So this one is from kideas.crypto. Congrats on your new device. How can IoTeX impact architectural design, the actual process of design, e.g. BIM, so building information, modeling, and integrating data collection into physical designs of buildings?
It's interesting.
I have to completely ideate on a brand new product idea, but this one was super interesting to me.
Cool.
Yeah, there's actually this company called SumoTeX. They're a private equity group out of Malaysia, and they're launching the first kind of crowd-funded commercial real estate building, right? As a kind of an NFT sale. You could check them out, sumotex.co. Excited to have them in the IoTeX network, but they're also trying to incorporate MachineFi aspects to this, right? A lot of these buildings, the valuation of them is also it's not just about like the inner guts, the infrastructure, but it's also about how green this building is, right? How efficient it runs. And today it's very opaque. You know, how do the HVAC units run? How green lead efficiency is this building, right? So adding that MachineFi or machine information to inform the valuation of this building is something that, you know, is already really interesting. There's also a lot of carbon credit type of real angles to it, right? If you have a hyper efficient green energy building, of course, like governments are going to throw incentives at you. But if you can decrease your carbon footprint of the building, then more tenants are going to want to enter and be part of that too, right? So from the camera security systems to, you know, buildings are painted with machines today. It just so happens that that's just funneled to some centralized entity. They analyze it, they'll give you the insight, and that raw data, honestly, is just sitting there. You know, a lot of these service providers don't know how to utilize it in the right way. And we actually talked to some of these companies saying, like, send us these massive Excel spreadsheets, be like, what do I do with this? You know, so that's an interesting design question about what we can actually do to utilize that data to, again, prove things to the blockchain in order to receive some type of incentive, right? But
yeah, I love this idea, and I selfishly chose it because it's like I think about like logistics a lot with like everyone's like, oh, like blockchain solves like logistics, and I've never always been like, what? No, like I don't think so. Like, but when it comes to like building materials and like what materials go into each specific house, it's like when the house is completed or a building is completed, you don't really know what's on the inside. Right. So all you're going with is like your gut or some other expert that's like, yeah, this one's like, this was really well built, or was this one really well built? And you don't actually know. But if you could follow the actual supply chain of what went into that building, and then that's there memorialized forever in this truth machine, that's the blockchain, you now actually know like the quality of every single building, like without a shadow of a doubt. It's like, it's the perfect like example of like quality. And like, think about the amount of value that's created for someone that really like, it's like, oh, that person does really good work. It's like, and you're just going off of like a rumor of that person doing really good work, and they can maybe charge a little bit more because like the stuff they build doesn't fall apart after 10 years. But if they can just prove that in perpetuity, now they can just charge exponentially more. And the margin that's there for that person is insanely higher. It's like, to me, that's like, I don't know, like built, like, I feel like there's a completely untapped area there with that.
Yeah,
great question.
I mean, ESG is just huge right now, right? Environmental and social good, like that's on the balance sheet of every Fortune 500 company, right? And if they were able to prove, yeah, I'm environmentally conscious, like it's more valuable than any kind of marketing you could do for these brands these days, right? Like, just look at the backlash from Discord and from that like Cello Kickstarter announcement. People are like yelling about NFTs and how they're not green. Like, this is the nightmare for Fortune 500 companies these days, right? So being able to prove without a shadow of a doubt that, hey, we're green, we're environmentally conscious, like whether they really truthfully believe that or just using it as like a branding tool, but you know, big sector for sure.
Love it.
I was just thinking, if I have a space in the Millennium Towers in San Francisco, I want to know if my building is straight in real time. You know, like I can't imagine.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
good.
exactly.
What a nightmare.
Yeah.
I got one from it's pretty cool. This guy's McKayideas.crypto.
No, he just won. That was the same guy. This guy's
just
asking
won?
a billion great questions. He's the only one.
Question master.
I had that up, man.
But ask it anyway. He gets two.
Okay,
No,
since
he
he already
doesn't
won,
get two,
he gets two. Because I thought this was pretty cool, and I see things like you know, there's like we have city coins coming up on another live stream in a week, I think, and I keep thinking about local communities and things like that. And this question's about how can IoTeX help create and support real world communities like neighborhoods, common interest groups, and ones that are location specific, such as parks, pools, lakes, etc. It's kind of interesting when you think about how do you bring like communities together through IoT. What are your thoughts there?
We just had a 2-hour workshop on City DAO yesterday. So
so we're always thinking about, you know, how this something happens in the metaverse, like a token incentives, can actually, you know, make impacts in the real world, right? So City DAO is a perfect example. That's why like we're in talking with them very closely, you know, nice people, very talented. So definitely like we were talking about, you know, to deploy some devices onto the City DAO's land. So help them to try to doing some monitoring, trying to scope the land. Once they have a building, they have a business, we can even deploy something over there to do some proof of income, proof of revenue, all sorts of crazy ideas. But my favorite example for this one is like an unmanned store, which is entirely run by the machines, and the machines are actually orchestrated by the IoTeX, TrueStream, like the MachineFi infrastructure. So think about this. This will be pretty cool, right? So you have an unmanned store. It's not running by Amazon. It's actually running by by itself, by a DAO, which has different type of holders. Making the decision. Oh, so we are selling like this tea maybe for $10 today. I don't know. Yeah, so this will be such a great like a social experiment to carry out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
All that ESG stuff still applies to the city DAO too. I think just like in a building, there's tons and tons of devices. In smart cities, these are also emerging, right? Whether it's provide security and like surveillance in a privacy preserving way, which is a huge issue today, or it's just providing data that's going to inform people about the air quality within the city, and paying people to install these like air quality sensors and run them, to even providing the Wi-Fi, to all these different types of connectivity that make the city run, right? All of this stuff is going to be fueled by machines without a doubt, right? And I think that having people trust the devices that provide this data, so they can make better decisions about where they live, and that's going to be kind of the theme of the future for sure. Yeah, who do you trust and why you trust, unfortunately, is a big question today, right? So having trusted machines that provide trusted data to trusted dApps, it's going to be the start of something. But really, how these communities form around that is that's the exciting part. Power to the people.
I mean, I was just like chatting with the folks from like Miami Coin yesterday, and it's like they've got a pretty massive fund now to utilize, and like they're going to use a portion of that just to straight up give it back to the people that live there, or the people that have voted actually in the previous election, which I thought was super cool.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, what if you can incentivize people for a beach cleanup, and they have a pebble in their pocket,
Exactly.
and
I like it. I like it.
that
Right.
people are on the beach cleaning up, and then how much trash that they have by the weight that it has, and you can instantly pay that person with some of that city coin. It's like, and as opposed to just like a lot of people do it for volunteering, which is fantastic, but it's like, hey, you throw just a tiny incentive on there, and you're going to have 10, 20 like composability in like more of a community way. Everyone has access to it. It's pretty impressive.
What's really interesting is like, so go ahead, Jing.
No, actually, this is all about, kind of how you incentivize people's real world activities, in on Web3. So basically, this is actually just like eventually this will drive, people's, kind of healthy activities. Actually, it's through the devices. Actually, it's kind of another angle of those, kind of proof, right? I mean, it's real time, and it's kind of real location.
Yeah. I was just going to mention that there's so many models that we live in the current world, like taxes, right? It's tax season. But people don't understand what do your taxes, people. But people don't understand what taxes are about.
Financial advice.
Right? Taxes are government incentives that for services that the government cannot provide to society, they're going to give incentives to people in the form of tax breaks, right? Why did Amazon not pay any taxes? Well, they're providing all these services. Why do people get huge tax breaks for providing apartment housing? It's because the government cannot provide that apartment housing themselves, so they give tax breaks to people to provide that housing, right? But if you shift the people that provide these incentives from the government to more of this people peer-to-peer model, right? If I want something done for myself, and I can issue that incentive to anyone, and they can prove to me that that's done, even anonymously, then it really breaks down that government top-down incentive structure to a bottoms-up one that, we always say that the government doesn't understand, the people, but if we build it from a bottoms-up perspective, these incentives are going to be more valuable, more user-centric, and more impactful in shorter sprints, right? So I think it's a really interesting kind of just a thought, pushing more power to the people again.
Yep.
I've got a really
another one,
fun
John?
question. Yeah, and I'm surprised we haven't talked about this, because as we talk about IoT and things in the real world, this question comes from Crypto Dude. He says, do you have any ideas for the metaverse? And that just got me thinking. I'm like, so how could all this real world data relay into a metaverse? And what are your thoughts there?
It's happening, right? So taking just like a drive to earn, that's the exactly example, right? So also like the example you mentioned John, earlier. So basically like we can use what actually happens in the real world and then mirror this in the virtual world. For example, if you walk every day, if you're running every day, your avatar in the metaverse becomes stronger, becomes more fit. Yeah, that's a stupid but a very simple example.
It's two ways too, right? Like the things you do in the real world, like a lot of people are setting up shops, right? In Decentraland or in Sandbox. And, like Raullen said, if you're working out, improving to the blockchain, you're healthy, maybe that translates to your metaverse character, right? If you buy something physical, like, a piece of dope clothing, and you want that to translate to your metaverse character, that's also something that's very possible, right? If you, perform very environmentally friendly things in the real world, maybe you get some type of benefit or unlock some type of opportunity in the metaverse world, right? So that's the real world and metaverse thing, I think, is very understandable. The other way is also really interesting. What you do in the metaverse can impact your real world, right? Where if you win a competition in the metaverse, then maybe in the future, an autonomous drone is going to deliver you a physical airdrop of a prize, right? So it's kind of flipping that model where you do things in the real world to earn digital assets. You can also do things in the digital world to earn real world assets, right? So I think these worlds are just going to blend together very seamlessly. A lot of opportunities in the metaverse.
Yeah. Also, like we see an ecosystem project on IoTeX. I think it's called IoTeX Monster. So it's like a Pokemon Go type of games. It's very interesting. You carry people, like going to anywhere and trying to be the monsters in the virtual world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like the more I hear and listen to you guys, it's more like all these like amazing things that are awesome about the digital world of blockchain, and like this provable, like I can prove I own this NFT. And then if I get into this party, in the metaverse somewhere, people are always like, well, they're just like JPEGs. I could just copy this NFT. It's like, well, like the machine knows like yes or no whether or not you actually own like the Bored Ape. And so like, where do you think people are going to want to hang out? At like the metaverse party where like people actually own the Bored Apes, or like the fake one? Like they're always going to hang out at the real one, right? But it's like, you guys are translating that to like the physical world with like the devices, and it's just like it hasn't been done. And it seems like that's when people kind of that clicks for them, that it's like, oh, like, and I like Jing, you're talking about all like the real world and physical and getting people out there. It's like the blend of those two things I think is really beautiful, and it's going to have a massive impact.
And it also empowers those, GameFi Metaverse, builders with a new set of, data they can leverage on, they can build. Actually, just like currently, they're, when they are kind of building up their own kind of mechanism, like either it's NFT or it's kind of the data mining or the token mining, right? So it's all kind of just like, they don't care just like where these, users are and, what type of activity they do, in the real world. But now kind of they easily integrate with IoTeX, protocols, and then just like open up, a new set of users, with real world data, and they can leverage on those data to help kind of create more features or, interesting scenarios, in their game, in the metaverse. So that's something. That's why I think that part actually just like, for us, why we feel, it's easy to kind of create the first batch of the MachineFi use cases, because we are not kind of building from scratch. It's not IoTeX building those dApps, those Web3 applications. Actually, we already have such a kind of group of Web3 builders. They are GameFi, DeFi, NFT DAO. Those builders, they are already working on amazing innovations, and then we kind of feed them, empower them with a new set of real world data or real world utility to make their application more powerful.
Yeah, this physical digital connection is super interesting because if you're a physical product creator, you're a physical creator, right? You make jewelry or something like that, or you're a digital creator. Now you can cross the chasms into the other counterpart worlds, right? Like one of my favorite use cases for this stuff is 3D printing. And if you're like a jewelry designer and you're making the dopest CAD files in the world, and today you don't have an opportunity to sell those because, you know, the 3D printer community, not by design right now, is open source, not because they want it to be, because there's no authorization of one-time use of these 3D files, right? But if I'm making the coolest jewelry designs and I'm able to sell these things at zero marginal cost, borderlessly, and it could only be printed once, just imagine like what that's going to do for these creators that, you know, today, just, you know, like Jing said, are being left behind, right? Also for digital people, you're creating something amazing in the metaverse and you wanted to 3D print a version of that, like these bare brick 400% giant statues that people love, right? Just so many different intersections that honestly, I think IoTeX is enabling for the first time. So cool design space for sure.
I have a question around, this one's for me, so I don't need to win anything.
We're gonna shoot you guys.
Yeah. But I'm sitting here staring at the, you know, your market cap. It's just under $1 billion. How big is the market opportunity for IoTeX? I guess, and maybe you have to break that down a little bit, because I know you got hardware. There's probably revenue there. There's probably the token. Like, how do you look at all this, and how big is that opportunity?
The TAM is massive. Yeah.
Yeah, I think entirely for MachineFi, it's like $1 trillion market for sure, right? If you're adding up all the leading device companies in this world, it's definitely like over $1 trillion. I think for IoTeX, like you have to think about how do we capture maybe a portion of this $1 trillion market cap over there, and how. So honestly, I think, you know, as a platform, if we do what we promised, I think it's easily like we can capture like a half of a $1 trillion market, because we will become like the new decentralized portal for lots of MachineFi company or like a device company to launch, right? So we will become like a portal for like a users who's actually, you know, doing smart home, like autonomous driving, or even some other scenarios. And if you think about it, so definitely like I'm sure like for IoTeX, it should be at least like a big fraction of this $1 trillion market. So that's our valuation.
Yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, like McKinsey has this amazing report on the future of IoT, right? This is their statistic. They estimate the IoT is going to generate $12.6 trillion in market value by 2030, right? If you think about Web3 flipping Web2, you know, Bitcoin versus gold, Ethereum and other general computing platforms versus AWS and GCP. And Web3 IoT versus Web2 IoT. We're talking about, you know, $1 billion for IoTeX right now versus 12.6 trillion for what McKinsey estimates the total addressable market is, right? So I think this is all going to trend together, right? But the proof is in the pudding, right? Like a lot of people talk the talk about IoT. This stuff is hard, right? You know, even manufacturing these devices and, you know, putting out these first initial kind of proofs of product. It's been a journey, man. But like now we have the template for others to really jump into this. And that's where it gets really exciting. You know, we don't have domain expertise in all of these different verticals, but by giving people the foundation to bring the data to the chain, attach some business logic to it, it's just going to be the start of something really interesting, and even expand that total addressable market even further, right? Because now you're blending in the culture, you're blending in the bootstrapping of communities, you're blending in this more peer-to-peer economy. It really follows a kind of flipping kind of models for other types of Web3 products, I think.
Yeah, I think, you know, the Web3 transition actually already started, just like, you know, in different sectors, right? When you look back, you will see, you know, from the traditional Fi to DeFi, actually just like within the, you know, the past 2 years, actually 300 billion, which is a real kind of valuation, you know, for the entire market and capture, right? From the traditional, you know, game to, you know, GameFi, 200 billion within 1 year. And from the traditional collectible to, you know, the NFT market, 100 billion within actually less than, you know, 1 year. We see actually 2022 will be the year, I mean, just like the starting year of MachineFi. And then you can understand just like, that's why, actually this year we focusing on the first batch of the, use cases, dApps, which will come to the life, right? And you can imagine just like, how within this, the next, 12 months, right? Any of the, kind of MachineFi use cases, can get the traction. And then this will be kind of the beginning of the MachineFi, actually we will see, kind of very conservative. The MachineFi itself will be bigger than LunarCrush. It's not only about LunarCrush, but LunarCrush is kind of the pioneer, and we are kind of the leader, right? But actually we are kind of, because of this MachineFi, it's kind of aligned with the interests and benefits from so many different group of people. And you will see, here the market cap or kind of the value potential is not only about LunarCrush, token. It's about a lot of the other kind of projects they will boom, and their valuation will be together. We will have this MachineFi, sector. Yeah. So we are looking forward to that part. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to take a crack at that too, John. It's like, I think about when people always ask about like the space, and they ask like, well, how can these startups or these protocols have these valuations? It's like, there's two things. It's like, one, it's like normally if like you started Uber, you have 7x7 and you have one city, and like, what's your TAM there? Right? Like you have to start in one place, right? And then you go to Austin, and then you go to LA. And it's like, that's it. And that's just in the United States. It's like launching like a protocol. Instantly you have like how many billions of people that have access to the internet and now have wallets. So that's like, well, times everything by 10 immediately. And then you think about something that wasn't ownable the first time it came out, which was the internet. Like you couldn't own HTTPS or SMTP. You couldn't own those things. And now you can. It's like, well, what's the current valuation of the internet?
That's a good question,
right? Like you don't know. And so it's like, it's like, it's not even an addressable market. It's a total non-addressable. We don't fucking know. Like, and so I think that's what blows people's minds. Is just like, you're owning a piece of maybe the winner of some internet. That's like a new thing. And I don't know, that's what blows my mind every morning when I get up, and what kind of stokes me out about it.
100%.
We have one more, we have to ask one more question. I've got one, John, if you don't have one.
Hey, there's like 30, so go for it. I'll let you do it.
Okay, this is from Anurag 00612623. He says, when will Baby Doge flip flip? No, that's from the last.
No.
Tomorrow.
I'm going to kind of rephrase a little bit, but he's asking, how MachineFi will impact the whole world. How will it have a huge impact on non-crypto users, or on non-crypto users, like rather than normal crypto users? So maybe like rephrased as like how will this impact people when they don't even know it's impacting them, like when it's kind of just integrated into their world?
I love the example of UBI. I know it's a touchy subject and kind of like a buzzword in itself, but like, look, all of the things that we own today, all these machines, like whether you're, reallocating resources from your machines when they're idle, that's been a very, very big like narrative. But even like, buying machines for the purpose of as a cash flow generating asset, right? Vending machines, airport lockers, autonomous taxis, drones, all these things can be cash flow generating assets for people in the future, right? They got to get comfortable with this fact. But what's really interesting is like back when I was a kid, VHS tapes, CDs, these are all things that I owned, right? If I want to rent it out to a friend, then, I could do that, right? Now we're in the world of streaming where everything is a service. We pay subscriptions to access services, right? And what Web3 does is kind of combines those two together, where we're back to owning things individually, but now we can also lease them out digitally, or use them to generate new forms of revenue, right? And I think as the world changes for everyday people, they're seeking these passive revenue streams for sure. And if we can make it easy for people to maybe invest, like an initial machine offering, if you want to own a windmill that's selling weather data to hedge funds all around the world, you can be a part owner in that, right? And it just breaks down the investment landscape to really interesting types of things. You can own part of a Bitcoin mining farm. You can own a set of windmills out in the desert. You can own a fleet of autonomous vehicles fractionally. I think that's going to be something that people really need to get comfortable with, right? The transition from taxis to Uber to community-owned Ubers is not going to be overnight, but the benefits are there, right? Just have to make it secure and, environmentally friendly. I think then people will really start to dive in.
Yeah, to me, actually, user experience is key. I mean, just like, blockchain or Web3, doesn't have to be very complicated and, very, means, kind of, difficult, user experience. It can be a kind of combination of both, the tech, its ownership, together with a very smooth, sleek kind of, user experience. I mean, when we get into kind of from the early adoption to the mass adoption, this is the biggest, challenge for all of the Web3 companies, right? So actually, just like, when we are introducing new technology, the consumer, they don't have to really kind of realize, okay, so what type of the technology really empowers their daily applications. I think that the entire Web3 space is already in this transition, period. Besides infrastructure building, actually, we are attracting more and more, great kind of Web2 or just like, innovative new kind of designers and builders come to a place and start to kind of focus on the user experience part. I think that part we will see a lot of progress in this year in different space.
In the last minute, I've heard user-owned Uber and I've heard user experience, and I can't wait for both of those things to merge, because it is interesting. Like, go back, I don't know, 5-6 years, all of our conversations around Uber, wow, it's going to revolutionize everything. I'm never going to own a car again, and it's only going to get better. Well, it feels to me, at least, everywhere I've gone, Uber has not gotten better. It's gotten worse. The user experience has not improved. And it's interesting when you hear
problem of monopoly. I mean, just like Uber, because they already got this, dominant, position, they have no incentive to really kind of, doing better for the users. But the actual Web3 is different.
The driver economics don't seem to be there either. The drivers aren't making what they need to make, and it's an interesting scenario that's going on right there. So I'll be curious to see what happens over the next year or two there.
For sure.
And you see things that are happening already. For example, wallet is a kind of the perfect kind of examples. Originally it kind of just serves the purpose, and it's really kind of course security is important, but actually just like it's kind of only the basic functionality. They're not really care too much about user experience, right? Right now, when you see just like, this area attract more capital, of course, and attract more talents. And you will see there's such a kind of competition for all those small teams. They are building up, better user experience, wallet for any chains or for any kind of, applications.
I know we're going like way over time now, but it's like Uber's just like Uber's just like the perfect example of like, why not decentralize? Like, it's no longer like the founders are out or the main founders out. It's just a massive monopoly. Like, no one's passionate about it anymore. It has tons of investors and users. It's got both sides of the market. Like, it just seems like a perfect example to like completely decentralize, launch like an incentive model and a token, and like suddenly open source a lot of this stuff. It's like done, right? Like, create like the incentive system where it's like, hey, if you have some negative, negative rides in a row, like you can't ride for weeks or 2 weeks or whatever else it may be. And it just like could be a perfect self-regulating like entity, because it's like, you can't travel anymore without it. Like, it's like when's the last time you traveled somewhere to a city without like, and you didn't rent a car and you didn't take an Uber or a Lyft or some sort of like hailing service? Probably never. It's like, it's pretty wild to think about how needed and almost like utility like it is now. And it's like, who's passionate about building? It's like, I was the other day, it's like, I can't give someone 6 stars. What if I can give someone 6 stars like 5 times a year because they really kicked ass? It's like, there's no innovation over there, it feels like, but I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so much there that you can do. All right, you guys, amazing hour. John, you got one more? You got something else? I feel like you want to talk. We can do Uber for 30 minutes now.
I probably could. No, I'm just over here smiling. I don't have anything else. I'm good.
Okay.
All right.
Well, you guys, gals, I really appreciate you guys coming on again and being a part of this. Like Raullen, Jing, Larry, you guys like killed it over this last year. And I can't wait to see, what the next year is going to be like. And let's do it again here soon. So appreciate all you guys. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Thank you for your questions. We'll get into your DMs here with all the winners here soon. And appreciate you guys. And John, as always, it's been a pleasure. We'll chat with you all backstage.
Let's have a great year, guys.